All right, everyone. The time is 4:05. Sarah, do you think we have enough for a quorum here? Oh, Manny's just walking in. I think with Manny, we might be okay. Sarah, if you're talking, I'm not able to hear anything.
I just wanted to check that I couldn't hear you on my computer anymore, so there wasn't a feedback.
Got it.
So we now have quorum, so we can begin.
All right, let's do it. We're going to call to order the meeting today, Education Alliance Board of Directors meeting for August 25th, 2025. The time right now is 4:06. With that, we will go over to roll call.
Michelle Anderson.
Here.
Christine Brown Gallagher. Here. Melissa Dedman.
Here.
Sorry. Yep. Kaylin Evans.
Here.
Victoria Mason. Not here. Landon Miller. He is here.
Here, present.
Chris Morgan.
I'm here.
Manny Ortiz.
Here.
Ralph Rodriguez. Absent. Julia Rogers. Here. Dave Shintani.
Here.
David Taylor. Not here. And Sarah Gobs-Hill.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, looks like we do have quorum. Moving on right now, we'll go over to public comment. Brittany, any public comment at this time?
None at this time.
None at this time. All right, so I think with that, we can move over to agenda item 201 for today. It's just a big old welcome from myself and our executive director, Sarah Gobs-Hill. Hopefully everyone had a nice summer. And here we are back at it. Fall semester officially underway today at the University of Nevada, Reno, Washoe County, a couple of weeks in. And our desire to help is as strong as ever. Sarah, what do you got?
And TMCC's first day as well.
Oh yeah, Team CC too. Definitely Team CC.
I know. It is a really busy time. I just wanted to welcome everyone and to say thank you again for joining us. We know how busy you are, and we really appreciate your time and your continued support and being an ambassador for public education. I just wanted to say I hope everyone had a really nice July. As you know, it wasn't as hot as maybe it has been in the past, but we know that that's a busy summer month for most people. And then I just wanted to share, today we're going to kind of be updating some of the progress of what Brittany and I have been doing over the summer, and then just kind of come back to some of the conversations that we've had around some of the projects, and then be asking for your expertise and insight, kind of like we do on a couple of upcoming things later in the meeting.
Easy. All right, this should be a relatively quick one here today. So with that, we'll go over to agenda item 202. That's going to be approval of the minutes from the June 23rd, 2025 meeting. We'll need a motion to accept those minutes and then a second.
I move to accept the minutes from June 23rd.
All right, Kaylin with the motion and then a second.
Second.
A second.
Second, was that Dave Shintani?
That was Manny
All right,
Ortiz.
Dave Shintani with the second. Perfect.
I
And
got it.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, it looks like the minutes have been approved. Up to 203, update on the closing of the Teachers Warehouse and Community School Supply Drive events to support the underserved Washoe County School District schools and students scheduled in August 2025. So it looks like, Sarah, I saw it in the news, it looked pretty good. The closure of the Teachers Warehouse, a little bittersweet, but that means we're able to move on to some bigger and brighter things, huh?
That's right. And so that's what I wanted to really tell you guys about. So we did have a last day of the Teachers Warehouse being opening. We did see quite a few teachers who came to express, sort of their sadness over it. And when we talked about what we were going to do going forward, many of them were like, "Oh my gosh, that does sound like a promising way to go forward." We did have a request by some of the new teacher staff to see if we would open it early. So Brittany and I went a couple days before the last day and made sure it was open for the new teachers this year as well, so they could walk through. So almost all of the materials that are in the warehouse at this point have been given away to teachers. Whatever was left that was usable, like if we thought it could be used in different schools, then Brittany and I have packaged that up in boxes and brought that to schools when we're doing these school supply drives. The other items that are left in the warehouse, which there really isn't a lot, there's some old curriculum materials that are in there, sort of dated, I would say, early 2000s and 2010 in there. There are some books from Spread the Word Nevada, but we're working with Courtney over at that organization so we can make sure we get those out and into teachers' hands. And then everything else is been given away. There's a lot of empty boxes, and some paint, which we'll bring out to schools. So going forward, what we are doing is we are just really working with our corporate partners or individual donors who want to support schools and making sure that we can meet with school leadership, ask them what they want, and bring those supplies to their schools. And so you may have seen, you saw the Teachers Warehouse coverage maybe on Colo. You might have also seen when we did that with the Public Education Foundation and Caesars Entertainment. We went to two Title I eligible but unserved schools. They were able to tell us exactly what they wanted. We purchased those supplies and we had those delivered to the schools. And then we really heard from the teachers that they really liked that. Brittany took the extra effort and got teachers, a flower and a little vase and a little thank you. And I think that, as we were starting school and they had those materials, they got really excited. I will say at Dotson Elementary, I was really shocked because some of the items we weren't able to bring all the way out because they keep them in the principal's office, like paper. They got the really big sticky pads, that they can write on, and laminating sheets. And when we announced that the teachers had laminating sheets, there was a round of applause. They were so excited. So I think it goes to show that, they really do like being asked what they can use in the classroom and how different that is from school to school. So we have, we worked with Washoe Education Association, Greater Nevada Credit Union, as well as, and renovation will be working with those, but on those two, and we went to visit Lemon Valley, which was really special as well because they have a lot of new teachers and a brand new principal. And that teacher was so excited that, or that school leadership was so excited that they invited us to their open house with their parents because they really, again, felt the support, and all the supplies that the teachers didn't use in the moment then stayed in their storage room. We have two other events that we're going to be doing with the Renovation Foundation, and then any sort of corporate entity that we know wanted to get supplies for schools. We are getting those and bringing those to the Title I eligible unserved schools. And in some places, we will be marrying that with a cash support. And that, again, was from funds that we had collected to support this teacher's warehouse and or school supply donations. And that came as a direct result of the coverage of the closing of the teacher's warehouse. So all of those are really positive. We'll put the ones on your calendar where we're having folks come. If we're just presenting a small check, aka a real check of cash, and a box of supplies, we can let you guys know those. We won't make a media splash when it comes to those because we just don't feel like it's as impactful as maybe some of the bigger ones. Yep.
Just to clarify for minutes, the official closure of the warehouse was in June?
July. Yep, July 30th was the last day it was open.
So it sounds like, clearly no one really wanted to, it's a tough thing, but some positivity came from that. So it sounds like laminating is one example. Any other highlights there that people were really excited about? It's interesting you say laminating, right? I remember a couple of years ago, we go through applications of different schools and what they want. And some people will say things as simple as office supplies can go a long way, where others will want sets for their class. So it's kind of cool that you can modify it directly to their needs.
Yeah, I would say if you want to be a popular person at any point, you could walk into a public school in our community with several boxes of paper, and they would probably be pretty excited. I had no
Fun,
idea.
bright color.
What'd you say?
Fun, bright colored paper.
Yeah, paper was a huge hit as well as something that is really needed, and the cost of shipping can be really onerous. The same thing with colored print cartridges. We've learned that as well. But I would just say that what we really heard is that it's really nice from both sides for them to see who in the community is supporting them, and for the community supporters to see the teachers and principals, in action, or to see the students. We really heard good things about that.
That's great. That's really good. Any questions or any discussion points for Sarah as we tackle this item here? It's nice to see that we're growing in different ways. All right. Hearing none, we'll go over to item 204. This is presentation and discussion to provide an update on Washoe County School District's chronic absenteeism campaign and Ed Alliance's efforts to support identified solutions. Sarah.
Before I move on to that, the one thing I realized I forgot to say for 2.03 is that we have been in really good communication with other nonprofits, so that we're making sure we're not duplicating our efforts. I feel like that's a really important note for everybody on the board to have, so that we're like, hey, if this school is being served by communities and schools, or if this school, has a really active partner in education, or they're getting other support, we're trying to make sure that we can work collaboratively to serve all schools. So just for that, before we jump into 2.06 or 2.04. So an update for 2.04, the chronic absenteeism. We just want to let you guys know kind of where we are. You guys know that we have been fundraising for this for kind of a while. And we're really working on the two prioritized programs that have been identified for this collaborative campaign. And that is the middle school engagement strategies. So that's looking at putting a person in 14 middle schools that can help with identify students who may be struggling with attendance, and then the support of the family resource centers. We've talked a lot less about that second part, which is part of the reason I wanted to talk about it today. We did present with the Moonridge Corporate Giving Council last week, and that was really nice. It was really great in the way that we got to share how are we working together with these two other nonprofits, but it was also really lovely in the way that we knew a lot of the supporters in there, and a lot of the corporate folks around the table have been supporters of Education Alliance and of this effort. So that was really nice. And it was nice to have, kind of be recognized for that. We are happy to share so we just wanted to highlight some of the data from Washoe County School District from last school year, so school year 24-25. There was a 71% of all Washoe County schools improved their attendance during last year and lowered their chronic absenteeism rate. So I think that really goes to show that building awareness around these type of issues can make a huge difference. And that's what the research would say again. And for any of you guys who know that, I do feel like we are one of those districts in the nation that is really setting a great example of how you solve a complex issue. 76 students that you're catching, for every percentage, that is several students, 10 students, and that's making a huge difference on those individuals. So we're working with the data department to make sure we can update all of that data for the last school year, so that we're sharing that. Most of you got the donor report that we sent out in May, but we're just trying to keep that consistent so we keep people in the loop of how their support is making a difference. And one of the things that we've been trying to prioritize in our newsletter, and I hope that everyone on this room got our last newsletter, but we're really trying to share the stories about the individual students that we hear. So we have a story. Do you want to scroll down? I think we included it in the board packet here, but we have one of a Lila who was supported by her engagement specialist. And it just talks about how she didn't feel seen, didn't feel supported, and how it made a difference. Maybe do you not have the colored board packet? That one with the images? Oh, okay. That makes it a little bit harder to share that images. So if you guys scroll down in your guys' board packets, which I sent out, you'll just see, let's see. You'll see information about the school supply drives, a picture of us with Greater Nevada, and then you'll see the page where it says Lila's promotion. And that's a story. And then here you'll see about the family resource centers. So again, we just really feel like those individual stories are so impactful, and we really want to make sure that those are getting out. So that's how we're sharing. If you guys aren't getting our newsletters, please let us know. As we're using a free service, we're a little bit worried that they're getting stuck in people's spam. And if we need to send them out in a different way, we just really want to be able to share that. I also want to speak to the fact that many of you may have heard about the collaborative campaign, but I don't know that I've ever called it Together for Students and Families. But that is how it is being articulated out in our community beyond sort of this board. So I wanted to make sure I use that language as well. And that's that when you go to the community foundation, and if you wanted to make a donation on behalf of this effort, that is the name of the campaign. So Together for Students and Families. And again, that is the collaborative effort that we are doing with Strengthen Our Communities and Communities in Schools to fund both the middle school engagement initiative as well as the family resource centers. For those of you who do not know about the Family Resource Centers, they're a really unique model where they are designed to put resources in the hands of families and community members that are in crisis. And it is a really amazing model that exists here in Washoe in the way that they are integrated into the school systems. In the rest of the counties throughout the state, that is not the case. They are either independent nonprofits or they're in collaboration with other nonprofits. And so one of the things that we have heard that's really special in Washoe is because of the network working with the intervention department, and Rochelle will probably come and talk later this year a little bit more about it, but their speed of being able to address some of the issues that come to their doors is really phenomenal. Like they can just do such amazing things. And so part of the work we have been doing is just trying to support that work. So in your packet, you will see a picture of a check presentation that we did with Cypress Renewables to support O'Brien's. You can kind of see some images of the Family Resource Center there, but I will say that the woman who leads that center in particular does it with such grace and dignity for all the families. It really is a special place when you go in there. You just go in there and it looks like a little boutique for families, and she is kind and caring and amazingly empathetic. So just so you know, there's good things like the support that we're doing really makes a difference. And I'll share out the link for the Community Foundation, as well, so you guys have a link to, where that campaign, those funds are being managed with that institution, in addition to what we have for Education Alliance. And for this year, this fiscal year, we've raised about $175,000 to support the efforts, which is really fantastic. It's a great momentum to have. We know it's a large campaign. I think we've estimated about 4.2 million all in. But that help adds stability, instability for really these families and students who really need it, and it's important. So that is the update that I have for chronic absenteeism. Is there any questions?
Quick question. When you talk about the amount of money raised, that's the collaborative effort. The effort in total with our partners has raised how much?
Approximately 175,000 for this fiscal year.
Thank you.
And is that so? The campaign Together for Students and Families, is that the overall? Is that the name for the entire campaign regionally, or is that specific to our efforts?
I would consider that the collaborative campaign for the region. We were calling it I'm Here initially when we had it, but we were raising money early days before the campaign sort of was far enough into having a name, sort of identifying all of the partners and doing that. We jumped right into chronic absenteeism when I joined the organization. So we've been fundraising for it since April of 2024, and I think it got named in the last couple of months.
Yeah, and to clarify too, that account or whatever through the Community Foundation is not directly affiliated with ours, right? Because wasn't there discussion earlier this year about how Community Foundation is doing some of our work, or what's the relationship between that and what we do?
Yeah, that's a really great point. So the Community Foundation is managing a fund, an Education Alliance investment fund, because as a nonprofit, we are still working on some of those policies that we feel like are best for our donors. And so in absence of having some of those policies that we're working on, just making sure that we have all of that and building capacity, we really wanted to work with an amazing organization like the Community Foundation. They have a great reputation, and they have an ability to invest funds in a way that we don't currently have. And so that was a number one reason. Also, because it's a collaborative campaign, we thought this would be a perfect space so that all donors know how much we're working together to make it happen versus just one organization. And if all the funds come to one location over the other, I feel like that can also change a little bit of the perception in the donor's mind. So again, that's an account under Education Alliance. And you'll start to see those in our financials now that we have funds in those accounts.
Cool. Any other questions for Sarah on this item here, 204? None? I think maybe my last question is too, sometimes I feel like, I am not as connected with the work as I'd like to be sometimes. So maybe, just in my own job here, I'm sitting in City Hall, and sometimes I don't get to go out to the facilities and the pools and the parks and all this other stuff as much as I would like to. So is there any chance maybe at some point, like looking at this North Valley's Family Resource Center to kind of just see what we do at some point? It doesn't have to be a group or anything, but how could that potentially work out?
Absolutely. So the last meeting we had, I actually had an official hey, if you want to see an FRC, let me know. We'll schedule it. But thanks for the reminder, Landon. At any time, if you'd like to see any of these programs, we can work with the district staff to connect us and, have a moment where we can sit. And whether or not it's going and visiting a family resource center or, it's meeting with a staff person here so they can talk more about how the funds are being used, we absolutely want people to feel like they have that capacity. So if you're interested, email me after the meeting and I'll make sure that we can go out and see some of these facilities, because I think it's really important, especially as board members, that you feel very connected to what we're doing, because it helps you share, right? And we know your community respects you. And so if you're talking about it and you're interested in supporting it, I think it helps to build really a positive awareness around the issue.
Landon, to that point,
Yeah, I would love to do that.
I've actually been working to schedule this exact thing for some private stakeholders who are potentially interested in investing in this for the event on September 10th. There's a little event that's being held to raise awareness for strength in our communities. And some people have asked to see the FRCs ahead of this event. So Landon, I will forward you when they're heading out to do that. You certainly don't have to go that date, but that's an option.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you. And also an email and get going. If anyone wants to go, let's do it. It's so cool to see that picture. I'm staring at it here. It looks good. It looks well kept and well supplied. So, and then how much do we give there? It looks like it's 10,000, right?
That's right. Yep. And again, I'll circle back with this after this meeting so that we make sure we can move on to the next item, but I'll make sure to include all of those pieces there. And again, it should be part of your weekly updates, but I understand I share a lot. So I'll try to keep it really succinct after this meeting, with just a couple of bullets as it pertains to this.
All right. Well, cool. Let's move on to 205 then. An update on the merger of Washoe K-12 Education Foundation into Ed Alliance, including assets, thank you breakfast for past volunteers, and potential changes to bylaws.
Excellent. So this is just truly an update. I wanted to let you know when we met in July, we hadn't gotten all the documentation or funds yet, and that is official. So I just wanted to let everyone know. We are looking at hosting an event for past volunteers for both organizations, and that's initially we had talked about September, but it feels like that's coming up too quickly. So we'll be looking at October and November. And we'll keep you guys in the loop of that. But if anybody has any strong opinions or really wants to help us plan that, if you'll please email me, we'd love to have any and all support for events. It's just really a gathering, and it's meant to be a thank you for all those people who have put so much time to support public education in our region. And then also to be able to connect them a little bit with Superintendent Ernst so he can share about his vision and priorities for for Washoe County School District as we move forward. I also wanted to mention with the update of that, with the update on the merger, this merger gives us an opportunity to update our bylaws. And so we're really going to take that full force as we go forward. So we will most likely schedule a meeting at the end of September, and I'm going to send it right after this so that we can talk about that. But we'll be looking at our bylaws because ideally I'd like to give you suggested changes next month so you can look at them so we can vote on them in October, so that I can file with the Secretary of State at the end of this year, so we don't have to do it a separate time, because we can do it when we're refiling. You can update your bylaws. I think that can be part of what we can do. Otherwise, we have to do it separately. So I just wanted to mention that as part of this merger, it's a perfect time as we're coming in to update our bylaws.
Hey, Sarah, it's Chris. Can you hear me?
Yes.
As part of the update of the bylaws, I think you and I have talked about this a little bit. We are looking to recruit more, get more people onto the board. I think it's the organization has evolved a lot in the last couple of years. As we update the bylaws, is that also the opportunity for us to think through ultimately how do we want to define our purpose and objectives as an organization, or is that a separate activity? How do you see that evolving?
I actually see that as part of the meeting in September. I think there will be parts where we can kind of lay out some of the work and framework that we've kind of discussed over the time, but really visually be able to put together a little bit of a framework and plan for the board to be able to see, and then see how that connects to the bylaw changes. Because I do think that those go hand in hand. What are we doing? Who are we hoping to serve? How are we accomplishing this, right? And then the bylaws say those things, right? And how we're agreeing on that as a board. And so I am anticipating quite a lot of work in the next little bit. So, a lot of email correspondence from me to the board in terms of that. But really, that's why I want to have a meeting in September, which at this point is not scheduled, so that we feel like we have enough time. So we're not just like, here's the conversation October and let's vote on it, but really have a time to be able to discuss some of the implications of the changes.
That makes total sense. Thank you.
How drastic of changes do you envision? I mean, it's not anything like completely overbearing, right?
I love that question. No, what I think it does a good job is just clarity. I think that is the piece, and what I'm hoping to also share in September is a little bit about what I learned when I met with some other educational organizations that help and work and collaborate with districts, and then how, again, that could be incorporated. Because when you look at our bylaws, there's a number of things that I feel like are good, but I think we could dial in some of the clarity. In particular, the two areas that I see changes is the governance and the financial management. And we've talked about that a lot, right? Like just the fact that right now we don't have an interest-bearing account. That's probably a good thing for us as we go forward, and so you can't do, we want to make some of those changes, but we don't want to do that until that is reflective in our bylaws, so things like that. Maybe we'll talk about, what entities are, best involved in the board, so we can think about as we're trying to bring in resources and connect with our community and make certain things happen, what should that look like? So those are really the two big changes I see, that I feel like if you want to talk about more substantial. Everything else I think is pretty standard for most nonprofit bylaws, just the things that I feel like we have already. No.
Cool. Any other questions for Sarah as we wrap up 205? Okay. Up next, we'll do 206. This is discussion and possible action to provide recommendations for external communication efforts regarding the merger of Washoe K-12 Education Foundation with and into an alliance of Washoe County. This is for possible action. So what do you got on this one?
Okay, so this one, and we may not need to vote on it, but I wanted to put it out there. And then if there was, if the board felt strongly about voting on a formalized communication plan, but essentially what I'd really love to know is, as a board, what do you think? And many of you are, communication professionals. What do we think is the best way to start communicating about the merger with Washoe K-12 Education Foundation? We know we have several, different audiences. We know we have, internal and external stakeholders here at Washoe County School District. We know that we have funders as a major audience, both corporate, foundation, and then we have individuals just out in our community. And so again, because Brittany and I are a small but mighty team of two, we thought, hey, let's bring it to this group because they're really smart. Many of you have had to do things like this for your organization, and just talk about it. If it were you, what would you do? Like, what do you think makes the most sense in terms of like a timeline and plan? What are some tactics you'll suggest? Those type of things. I really want to put it out to you guys. We're going to take notes.
Hey, Kaylin Evans for the record. I think to even answer that question be helpful is to kind of what's the ultimate goal? Is it simply to educate the community or whatever? I don't want to say community stakeholders that the merger has happened, or are we looking at how this merger may potentially change sort of our goals and our initiatives, right? So I feel like there's a lot of stuff that goes together, and I think Chris brought up a good point around overarching discussion around what is the sort of guiding principles or goals of this sort of newer organization, right? And it's evolved a lot. I think that's really important to have those discussions. But I also feel like these kind of go hand in hand, right? Because if we're going to talk about this merger and what that means, I think it's a good opportunity to like segue into sort of how does this now define us maybe differently and what our goals are. I think the reason I bring that up is because if you can over communicate too, right? Like in the sense of if we have different sort of like communication campaigns, like, oh, first we're going to talk about the merger. Well, what does that mean? And then we have this other one about, okay, these are the new goals and initiatives but it seems like it's a good opportunity to kind of pair all these together, if that makes sense, and really focus on, now that we have merged these organizations, okay, what does that mean? And then that it kind of lends itself in a good way to sort of this new vision of an organization.
Are there any other comments? I really love that. Like thinking about, because I do think you can, like you said, over communicate the nuances. I do think that we're at a place that we need to sort of say, this is who we are, this is what we do, and let people know why that's important. I think it's contextual because there are so many folks that coming into this organization, heard a lot about donor confusion. So who do I support if I want to support? If I want to give a gift to Washoe County School District, how do I do that? And that didn't have a straightforward answer,
Did we get their, kind of like their contact list or their mailing lists as part of the merger, or did that not come?
Yeah, we have, they have been really great with just helping us, have their past documents and any sort of information. So we feel like we could communicate to both parties, anyone who is still interested. That's part of the reason that we want to have the breakfast is, again, to say thank you to people first and foremost before we invite them into this next chapter. And we'll do that at the same time, probably.
Sure. And sorry, just
Yeah, and I think. Okay, go for it, Kevin.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead. You jump in.
I was just going to piggyback on your point, really. I mean, I think the merger can be an opportunity to relaunch, reignite, re-inspire what we do with ourselves, with the community, and get us out there. But I think before we go too big on that, it's just a matter of clearly defining what that looks like and kind of how that feels. So I don't know if we're there yet, but it's an opportunity to get there, potentially when that time comes.
That's great to hear too.
Well, and kind of to piggyback on that as well. That was my question was going to be. I know we kind of tentatively talked about some timeline on this, and if the board's feeling is that we should try to maybe dial in some of the, I guess which one do we feel like we should be doing first, right? Do we talk about the fact that we've merged and then just kind of as is, or do we use that opportunity and first kind of dial in what the sort of new direction and identity, I guess, for lack of a better, of the organization is, and then using that too to pair. Because again, if you're going to start emailing, I think Landon brought up a good point around the mailer list, right? The contacts for this other organization. It would make sense to kind of start messaging all of that together.
And I think I know several years ago, the board voted on a new strategic plan, mission and vision, and this might be another opportunity to kind of revisit that and see if it still fits where we're going, and then maybe see if what changes we could put in there, and then maybe in that we could include in that strategic plan or some of the new changes, right? We're merging or even, I don't know, we don't have to go very deep into the details, but it could be an opportunity to show this is where we're going, excuse me.
And I think our plan is due for a refresh anyway, so the timing's good.
Yeah, you guys make a really good point. I do think with the strategic plan, with the open meeting, one of the things I wonder is, given this merger, does it make sense to try to outline a 1-year plan? Like, this is what we want to do. This is who we are. This is what we're serving. This is where we're going, and build some strategies around that, and then come back and do a full-fledged strategic plan. The only reason I'm asking is because of timing, right? Is because if we're talking about both communicating out to people, trying to make bylaw changes, which I think are really important, and being able to give, really articulating and visually representing strategically what we're talking about, all of which, to be clear, I'm 100% on board and ready to do the work. It's just a matter when we start talking about strategic plan, that can mean different things for different people. And that process can be a little bit, it can be time consuming. So that's why I'm asking, as we're meeting here, if we're starting to think about September, October, really getting to be those times, maybe we don't have a thank you breakfast till November, based on kind of what you're saying, but we know that time is kind of the essence. I just think about that communication plan.
So when you're talking about the strategic plan, one option may be, which is what the district is doing at the next board meeting, is bringing it to the board to talk about extending the strategic plan for a year and having the board vote on that. That could be an option as you're getting your ducks in a row with everything. So just extending it that 1 year and then digging deeper. That gives you a little bit of time to dig further into, as you've outlined, new bylaws and direction.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I've already spoken enough. Go ahead, Chris.
I've been talking a lot. Well, I guess I don't talk less than I normally do. I'm not sure I totally understand the difference between our purpose and goals, which I think we do need to understand relatively soon because of the merger and our need to recruit on the board, and the strategic plan. Is that just a deeper level breakout of the initiatives associated with driving that purpose and achieving those goals?
That's how I see it. I would see a one-page document as this is who we are, these are the goals, this is this, but with less of the implementation and the dialed out metrics. I think those take a little bit longer, but that may be just how I'm interpreting something like that.
I see the metrics. I think it seems like the initiative should be part of that, though. And again, maybe not detail on the initiatives, but if we know our purpose and goals, what is it primarily fundraising? And is it chronic absenteeism, or can we leave that more broad? We are not doing Teachers Warehouse anymore. We are doing partners in education, but we probably need some definition around that. So I think, yeah, I agree with you. So there's probably some level of depth that we definitely don't need to go to, but I think there is some level of depth we need to get to relatively soon.
And for me, the timeline piece, I feel like is most important. That's why I was saying a year versus 3 to 5 years, because sometimes that's a little bit harder. But again, Kayla and I didn't mean to interrupt.
You're fine. No, I think, and Chris brought up a good point. I think personally, the way I would see it is, I don't think you can't really write bylaws unless you have this clear sort of understanding of like what you're doing as an organization. And I would say, to talk a little, like the strategic plan, right? You're looking at more quantitative metrics, right? Like where are you going over the next 3 years? How are you going to measure that? What are the goals and objectives? What are the midpoints? Like all of the things, like that's really the nitty gritty. I don't think we're there yet, right? We need to go back to the kind of core piece, because in terms of recruiting for new board members, and particularly in starting to recruit for new corporate partners, they don't, not that we can't tell them about the strategic plan, but they need high level. They don't want to get into it. They just want to say, hey, this is what our focus is. I support these initiatives of this organization. I can get behind this. And then when we do follow-ups, then we're able to provide follow-ups of the strategic plan, right? And so I think as a board, we should really hyper focus in on that one pager, I guess you're saying, right? But like, hey, this is the initiatives, because we talk about chronic absenteeism, and I've mentioned it before. I think that's too broad, personally. I think it's an important goal, but it's a very broad, and I don't know if people, and then you have to explain it. And if I have to explain it to somebody, you've already lost them, right? Like that's not a good pitch. It needs to be clear and concise. Now it can fall within, right, the chronic absenteeism umbrella, but what specifically are we going to focus in on that get kids to come to school? Now that's a larger conversation, but yeah, I think as a board, our next goals should really be like workshop sessions where we're coming together, we're looking at mission and kind of reevaluating those pieces. Once you have that, then you can do bylaws and strategic plan.
So I will say with the bylaws, I think they are critical, because if you're going to be soliciting people to come on the board, what type of board members are we looking? Are they representing certain areas? What's the responsibility of a board member? So that's something Sarah and I've had the discussion about. And then I just am going to remind everybody that we have to follow open meeting law. So when we are having these discussions about what is our mission, vision, whatnot, these workshops or whatever we're doing has to be posted and has to be in alignment with open meeting law. We can't have small working groups. It has to be done in the public. So I just am putting that kind of in everybody's, so it's a little more time consuming, but the bylaws absolutely have to be filed with the state. That is something I know Sarah has mentioned and we've spoken with legal about as we're kind of having this discussion, just to keep that in everybody's front of mind.
Yeah, and just
and Michelle, I think Michelle, just to emphasize kind of what you said there, I think understanding what our purpose is, I think we're moving from an organization that was primarily focused on services to an organization that's primarily focused on fundraising. And that's a different set of skills that maybe we need to be looking for as we recruit for the board. So I think, again, understanding what our purpose and goals are at some level needs to be done before we get into maybe not all the bylaws, but certainly some of them.
Absolutely agree. Thanks, Chris.
So in terms of formatting, just for your guys' schedule, because I do think it could be important to have a couple of different sessions, and we could do we could do them virtual, or we could do them here in this room if they are available. But how are we would need to fit them in between now and September. So we could because again, I feel like we have good information that will kind of inform this. I mean, back to Kaylin's comment on the chronic absenteeism, how I articulate that when I'm talking with people who may want to support the organization is I say, we try to work to, address top concerns for Washoe County School District. This is one of those priority areas, knowing full well that I don't know that we'll always be in this space of chronic absenteeism, right? Like if we do a good job, this campaign goes forward, there is some sustainability in that space. There may be other priorities that come to the top. And so I'd like to always have an ability to be like, this is a top priority of the district. This is how we want to work together, because as we're working in collaboration, I think we'll really move the needle for students. But then we need to have some other things that we do, right? Like the school support, like you guys are the direct school support. I think that is something that arguably Education Alliance has been in this space for a while. There may be some other things that come out of that, but to address sort of these pieces, do we want to try to do a couple sessions in September?
Let's make sure that we're in alignment with our agenda item that is about the merger of Washoe Ed Foundation and Education Alliance,
And
so
the
we don't go off
communication.
topic.
All right, so then you guys hear it. I'm going to put in an email and just let you guys know what dates, and we'll look for a couple of workshops in September for us to come back and talk about this. Okay, so then that's the end of 2.05. 2.06.
All right. With that, we'll move over to presentation and discussion to provide information on the Redfield Outreach Coordinator Program's purpose, audience, and impact, and why it's an exemplar of public-private partnership.
Excellent. So we have one of the coordinators here with us, Juan, who's going to be joining us. I'm going to give high-level review of just of the presentation here, but Juan is here to answer any questions, and you can have a seat, there. So, but Juan is here because he has, worked with this program for a number of years. It really is phenomenal. I know that we don't always talk about it. I try to share the highlights on a regular basis with the newsletter, but I feel like sometimes we don't have as much quality time to be able to talk about this program, so we wanted to be able to highlight some of the work. So we're just going to go through some of the highlights here, and then I'm going to put out questions and answers for Juan to answer if you guys have any. So the Redfield Community Outreach Program is a program that it's a public-private partnership, and one of the reasons that I think does such a good job of showing what can happen when philanthropy leans into public education. And this has been bridging the opportunity gap for children in our district for 12 years. And it serves about, a little less than 5,000 students annually at 12 different schools. And what it does is it really is connecting those students to resources that they wouldn't have otherwise in the classroom. We'll do it quick. Okay, so the mission is really to address the opportunity gap through experiential learning. So if for our schools that participate in this program, they have an opportunity to have nonprofit experts in the informal education space come into their classroom and share about different topics that they wouldn't maybe otherwise have in curriculum, or go out and visit in the community. So there's a lot of field trips. How the program works is Juan and his collaborators are really there in schools to be absolute advocates for the teachers and for the partners both. So they work together and add capacity to teachers' schedules. We have heard back through the program over the years that especially new teachers are daunted by the idea of organizing a field trip and getting their kids out in the community. So in that case, Juan shows up, asks them what sort of things that they would like to enhance their curriculum with out of a list of the partners, and they work to make that happen. And we have heard time and time again from both principals and staff about how that makes such a big difference. They really trust Juan. Juan has great relationships, and Diane have great relationships with these partners, and they can streamline things that otherwise might be cumbersome for both parties, which is really powerful. One of the reasons I love it is because we also look at what it does. We collect the impact and evaluation and share that every year, and there's an ability to really share their expertise. We also, and I just want you guys to know this, all of the partners that these guys work with, maybe next slide, that they work with, we work with since I have been here. So we have both partners they're actively supported by the Redfield Foundation and then other partners that we just take advantage of. But what we do is after Juan and Diane meet with these folks, we create a handout that we then share with all of the principals so that they know, hey, who's the most recent contact at this nonprofit? What is the different educational offerings that they may have, and how does it connect to curriculum? And that is a real benefit. So even though they're not part of the program, we try to make sure to disseminate that information. And if people have questions, follow up. Next slide. So you can see here, there's a lot of community partners as well. And so there's opportunities that are available that maybe are free for schools, or, you know, have things that could be available. And Juan and his team really work to make sure that that's enhanced throughout the schools. Yes.
And just going off on building on that, we are district employees, and so we do have access to reserved district transportation, again, alleviating that from the teacher. So we don't count on the teacher to do it or the secretary to do it. That's something that we take on ourselves. And we also are able to handle all the invoicing ourselves. So again, being district employees, it's a streamlined system. So our partners can count on us handling the invoice, and our teachers can count on the buses arriving on time. So that's another valuable piece that we bring, being so involved with the district.
Awesome.
Juan, for the record, can you state your last name?
Oh, Calderon, Saldana.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should have
That's okay.
included that in the introduction. Do you want to go to the next slide? So program impact. This last year, we really had three, well, I guess it's 4 pieces that we'd like to just sort of highlight. So last year we looked at principal voice, and this was just, you know, we asked principals about feedback about the program and what it does for their students. We looked at the climate surveys that get sent out of the schools and how those compared to other schools, and we looked at data snapshot. So realizing it is really hard to connect something like an informal educational experience in the classroom to class-wide or school-wide data, but we wanted to just see, you know, if we're looking into this, what we can see. And then we looked at, you know, just program growth and trends. So we thought we'd share just a couple. One, the principal feedback was, you know, has been consistently positive year over year in terms of their experience. And you can imagine if you're a busy principal and you know you have a resource that will help your teachers enrich their learning experiences, you're going to be stoked. When we looked at the climate survey, we found out that on average, the RCOP participating schools scored higher than the non-participating schools that we looked at. And again, we did this in comparison with the data department, but I think it just goes again to show that principals and teachers at those schools felt like it makes a difference. Next slide. Here was our academic data, and we took out the school names just to make sure, because sometimes principals, especially if you're leading a school that, you know, has a jump in chronic absenteeism, it can feel, you know, you can be sad. And so we wanted to make sure that we kept it, you know, just showing the schools that are participating. But this is data that we saw last year. So 7 out of the 9 RCOP elementary schools saw a reduced rate in chronic absenteeism, or they were right about the same. So we only had 2 that had an increase, and 2 of the 3 middle schools also. And so you can kind of see the comparison data where that is, and then looking at the RCOP schools. And again, we realize this is a complicated data point, but we do believe that having the RCOP program and the ability to have students, you know, be able to go on field trips on specific times or to have these novel experiences really does impact their excitement about school and positively impacts their attendance. Next slide.
And just adding something to a way that we feel like it's combating that. We've had, you know, we meet with principals, and they kind of, at the beginning of the year, they'll tell us what their goals are and what they're trying to work on. And one of them is, you know, chronic absenteeism. And so a lot of times those principals will ask us for ways to incentivize those students to come to school. And we have a Redfield series in partnership with the University of Nevada, Reno, and they will give us one sporting event or tickets to at least one sporting event a year. And so a popular one is the UNR soccer game. And so a lot of students want to go to those. And so a way to have them come to classes, principals will say, hey, if you're on time to every class for a month, you can get tickets to a game for you and your family for free, and we'll provide the busing. And so those students will be super excited, and then it involves the whole family as a reward. And so it's a great way for us to try to move those metrics too.
So, and we just thought we'd share a couple of the highlights and challenges because, of course, no program ever runs without challenges. But just highlights, like honestly, amazing programming that is happening in these schools because of the work of Diana Wan. There's been an increase in teacher trainings, particularly around robotics because of our partnership with DRI, and then just increased partner research. We are collaborating with communities and schools this year, and we are working so that they can share their expertise and some of the resources that we have from a particular grant at Desert Heights Elementary School, which currently I think has a chronic absenteeism rate of about 19%. So we're really hoping that this can be positive, but we're sharing the expertise with the CIS staff who then will implement some of the programming or the connections. So we're really excited to see what that looks like. Some of the challenges that we've had with this program is we have lost a staff member this last year, which is a little bit tricky. And so we're in the process of, sort of looking to bring somebody else onto the team. And then we have definitely seen partner funding reductions. So a lot of our nonprofits are feeling the effects of some of the federal and state funding that pertains to their operations. And so when that happens to them, they have less capacity and they have less offerings for our students. So that's a challenge we are dealing with. Yep. And again, we just come back to this as such a valuable partnership because we believe that, it's really adding capacity in a space that is really beneficial for our schools. And we really feel very lucky to have the support and this, like, somebody who is so invested, I feel like, in the sustainability. And we believe that this is making a real big difference in our kiddos. One of my favorite stories, I don't know, do you have this slide? Let's see. I'll just share this story. So one of the stories that I remember coming in, and Diane, and I know she would share it if she was here, but she talks about a student who was in middle school, and they went out to an industry, and they had an industry tour. And the kid left, and he was like, tell me what I have to study. I want to work there. This is a game changer. I want to do this, And so we know that experiences at museums or, historic society, getting to see a railroad, or ride on a railroad, can make a huge difference to kid. And sometimes it's very difficult to quantify that in actual data. But we know from the qualitative data and the quantitative data that this is a really impactful program. So I just wanted to share that because I feel like the work that Juan and his team do is so amazing. And sometimes folks, I don't think understand that we also are involved with the management and direction and evaluation of the program. So yeah, are there any questions for Juan?
I don't know if it's a question for Juan. Hi, Juan, but great stuff. Thank you. Or if it's for you, Sarah or Michelle. But we have not historically talked a lot about the programs at Redfield within the Education Alliance. Is that because we really see them as two separate efforts, or is there another reason? Because to me, it is something that, to the extent it makes sense, we should be highlighting as part of the work, certainly that Sarah, you're doing, because I do think it does have a direct influence on absenteeism, and it's just an amazing story.
That's a really good point. I think since I've been here, I have tried to share it at a number of our board meetings, and for sure it's incorporated into our newsletters. I think every time. Beyond that, I don't know about the communication or pieces, and I can't speak to what was done before I was here.
So you may
Is
remember,
it-
Chris, that the Education Alliance would come to the Board of Trustees once a year and present the work that they have been doing, and they would highlight the Redfield Foundation network. Obviously, with the change in leadership from the executive director, we wanted poor Sarah to get kind of her legs underneath her. We will be having her go before the board. It probably won't be until after the first of the year, but Redfield will definitely be part of it. And I know, for example, Dr. Cole from Redfield Foundation has been meeting with the superintendent consistently to talk about their mission and priorities and highlighting the work, obviously, of Juan and Diane. So I would say it hasn't been maybe front and center, maybe the way you would typically think, but I think it's been a constant conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like, we've been talking about it for years, but it seemed almost like an afterthought, or there's this other thing that's going on that is not part of Educational Alliance. Just know that, that's where these numbers are coming from, and, kind of working on this. It just seems like it could be something like, I'm not sure if it's part of our strategic plan. Like, it should be something that maybe is more toward the heart of what we're trying to build for and talk about.
That's a great point, just in terms of maybe we can highlight it in terms of some of our partnership work. That's certainly how I think of it. Like, when we do partnership work, I think of this as a key example of a great example of working with schools. And again, I have tried to include it with the weekly updates, but if there's a better way, or you're like, give me more RCOP information, let me know, and I'll try to share more, because maybe it's just farther down in my 15 bullets I send to you guys, and you need it to be up at the top sometimes. So I just want to be thoughtful about that, because I certainly want you guys to be aware, because again, as ambassadors of Education Alliance and the work we're doing, take pride in this program. It really is amazing. It really is making a difference for these kids.
Well, and I think, Sarah, you have done a great job over this last year bringing it to be part of the regular conversation. So I think there really has been. I just wonder whether we should be doing even more.
Well, I'd like to kind of echo Chris's point, and maybe I, as personally, need to be more tuned in on some of these things. I've heard the term. I've been in the district prior for a decade. We really focused on field trips at my school. I organized a lot, so I've heard the term. This is the first time that I knew that Education Alliance was sort of directly related. I knew that there was, overlap. I didn't. So again, maybe I feel bad, like that I should be more dialed in on that sort of thing. But I think again, I've seen them. I've seen the term. This right here was. I don't think I need more. Like, this was just beneficial. Like, it was just an update. Hey, this is what we're doing. I think since and again, I haven't attended every board meeting, so I apologize. But since I've been on, it was the first time I've had it presented in that way versus just reading it. And so that's why it was helpful. And so I always thought that, when we talked about it, it was just, oh, this is another organization that's doing work. Great. I didn't know that there was actually a kind of a direct correlation in terms of our management of it. So I think that was the kind of missing piece for me. Not to speak on anybody, but I did have a question quick too. The schools, how are they determined? Do they change? Have we had the same schools forever? And and what schools are they?
Right now we're at 12 schools, so we're at 10 elementary school and 2 middle schools. When the program started, it was just 4 schools, and they were kind of, each time we grew, they were kind of picked and chosen different ways. Hasn't been consistently like an application process. One year it was where we had reached out to schools and principals that had heard about it or found that it could be beneficial. They applied, and then we reviewed that and picked schools. Right now we're mainly focused in Title I schools and bubble schools, and so we have, like I said, 10 elementary schools and 2 middle schools. So the middle schools are Dilworth and Vaughan Middle School. And then we have 9 elementary schools, and we did just bring on Alice Smith this year. So that's the new addition that we had, change in programming and stuff, but those are the ones that we focus on.
And then do those continue from year to year? Or do they have to reapply each year, or is it just we're keeping it with the same ones?
We try and keep it with the same ones. We've kept it with the same ones. The reason for the change last year, and I think we could have brought it up maybe in challenges as we review the program is we were at a middle school before, and we found over time that it's a little more difficult to pull students from middle schools because of the class periods that they're missing the instruction time. And we also noticed that a lot of our partners in the community tailor their programming specific to elementary schools, so the offering is also
More limited.
It's also more limited. So when we pivoted and changed, we decided to bring on an elementary school, which is, you know, typically easier. If we take a field trip, the teacher goes and it's the whole class, so they don't have to find like a science teacher in the middle school would have to find a sub to cover for that whole day, and that's a fee that the school will have to pick up. So it's stuff that we've learned over the years.
Okay, thanks.
And you guys may be familiar with Envirolution really was a nonprofit that was serving the middle school audience, and with their sunsetting, that was another reason to kind of think about the middle school audience, or I mean for the elementary, the utilization rate's high.
No, I was just going to say to Chris's earlier point on sort of redefining our why and our purpose. You know, this is something very tangible, right? People get the value of field trips and what that can mean and what kind of impact that can have on a student. And so this might be something that we consider as we're looking to kind of a 1-year plan, or even looking forward to a longer term strategic plan.
I completely agree. And even we know for caring for classrooms, like going back to Sarah Winnemucca, we know that we gave them $10,000 because they were a Title I eligible school. And one of the things they were not able to do is field trips. But because of this board agreeing that that was a good use of funds, every student in their school has gone on a field trip, since we've been here, which is really fantastic. So I'll note that for sure. Are there any questions? Any other questions related to the RCOP program? Thank you so much, Juan, for everything, honestly. Okay, guys, 20 minutes, and I think we only have one more item, right? Okay.
We do. Yeah, we'll move on to 208. Thank you, Juan, for that presentation. Great stuff. Let's go to an update on the Education Alliance's organizational improvement, including the board meeting, legal records, data migration, financial management changes, and impact reporting.
Okay, awesome. While Brittany gets up the covers for our impact report, I'll just talk about it really briefly. So one of the things that you guys know I've really been trying to dial on is just increased transparency. Like when you guys are sitting here and you're like, well, I've never heard that before, or I didn't know about that. That part of my real intention is really trying to bring as many people into the loop. Like, I know the nitty gritty. I'll share it all day long. But also just maybe we can keep some things at the high level, but so that everybody knows what's going on. Well, one of the things that I really am aiming to do is to get an impact report out there so our donors know exactly where funds have gone or how we're supporting things in the district. And so we are trying to finish one for calendar year 2024, which I realize was a little while ago, but we're getting it back up. And so in that, really just talking about, who the board is, what we're doing, what funds we have raised, and then that would be something that, and the impact of those funds will live on our website, and it will also have a financial section. I did want to get your guys' opinions. Is that taking a minute? We just have two different images, and I was like, I just didn't know if there's one that you guys felt more strongly than the other. So depending on how long it takes to bring it up, I just wanted to see which one you were more drawn to, because I feel like as we're putting this out, and then I will keep you in the loop as that gets drafted. We are trying to triple check all of our numbers with the data department, so that we make sure we're completely in alignment, especially as it pertains to attendance and chronic absenteeism. So here we go. So there's this one, which is we really felt like kind of nods to the high five or the I'm here campaign, raising your hand to get involved, or the bottom one, which we felt like was a good student picture, but kind of shows, a little bit of who we're trying to support. And we didn't know if anyone had a strong opinion either way, but we thought we would put it in front of you guys today.
Can you show the other one again, first one? just one guy's opinion. I kind of like this one just
This is
because
just opinions.
teachers are so, teachers are so critical to everything we're trying to do. And, this shows both the teacher and the kids. Certainly, but, other people may just respond to just the kid more. But
Well, and
this shows the consistency of what we're trying to do.
I just wanted to say, Julie asked, she was like, this is an informal vote. And absolutely, this is just opinions. We just wanted to hear and kind of put it in front of you guys and see if there was something that kind of spoke and that's perfect. So, anyone? And we don't have to spend a ton of time.
So I was going to say, for me, I like the second one just because I can see the expression. The first one, I like the high five, but no expressions, right? You kind of looking at the back of the teacher's head. That's just me, though. So.
Awesome. Any people?
Yeah, high five with faces would be better.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Manny on this one. I mean, the expression really sells the emotion behind this, and I think would be more appealing.
I'm always for, forward-facing photos. I always have a hard time just with one student in there because it doesn't represent, obviously, the
student
multiple
body.
students and diversity. So I would say I like the forward-facing, but
maybe addition.
yeah,
This-
more kids are. I like the idea of having a staff member as well.
And again, when you have a pretty small team like we do, it's just great to sort of crowdsource feelings on that one. So this is great. We'll take back, just your guys' impression, and that's fantastic. And then the last two other things that I wanted to share is that our customer relationship management tool, all the data is formatted, which is really exciting for us. But we anticipate starting our deduplication process probably in September, and we're hoping to be able to use and send out an email with our new platform in October. And I know that probably doesn't speak to a lot of you, but man, am I excited. And then the last thing in terms of our operation, I just wanted to talk about financial reporting, that it's going to change again this year, but that we'll be sharing a little bit about what that will look like in this, in the next meeting in September, so that you guys can have an idea of, kind of what that looks like. And really it's because of things like, now we have a community foundation of Northern Nevada Funds. So we need to be able to show that, right, along with our external accounts, along with the pieces like that. So we're working on those pieces, and that takes quite a bit of my time. So just knowing I'm digging in, but I want, again, coming back to the transparency piece, I believe it to be so important that is a huge focus of the work that I'll be doing over the next month. And with that, are there any questions?
All right, hearing none, we will move on to some of the closing items. First up, Brittany, do we have any public comment at this time?
We do not.
Okie doke. 302, we will announce the next meeting in October 20th, 2025. Again, there's a chance there might be something before then, but we'll keep everyone posted, and we'll notice it the correct way. Anything else? Doesn't look like it. So at this time, we will adjourn the meeting at 5:18. Thank you to everyone.
Thanks for the steady hand, Landon. Thank you, Sarah and Brittany, as always. Great stuff.
See you.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thank
We
you.
so appreciate your guys' time on today.